Everybody, it's Chris van die Kerk here at Blue Rhino Safaris. I recently replaced my 18-inch rims with 17s, and I thought I would do a quick video to give my reasoning and show you what was happening with my 18s. So the 18s are sort of coming to the end of its life, and in this video you can see the outer edge. I had the white on the outside, and you can see how the edge has been damaged on the outside. You can see the white coming through, the scuff marks, the cut marks are rocks and things, so that's not the tire itself. But yeah, it was interesting. It was only on the outside that I had it. If I flip it over, then the inside of the tire is actually still fine. And I then realized what was actually happening. Because you are driving in two-spoor, let's say Kukuland or Botswana or wherever you're going, you're probably in two-spoor a lot, and the outside of the tracks are rounded a little bit. So if you move up and down on the track, then your outside of the wheel sees a lot steeper incline. Also, your sharp rocks and everything is on the outside. The inside is normally quite smooth. So you see the outside getting the bulk of the damage on the outside of the tire. So it was not the reason for the change. The tires, I didn't have a sidewall cut at all on these tires, and yeah, they really did well. So I decided to replace them with the same tires, but I wanted to change the rim size. When I bought the vehicle, I got the 18 inches with them, and as I say, my philosophy is always, if I expect you to drive with your vehicle that you purchased from the shop floor, then I can't come around with a modified vehicle and say you have to stay with me. I have to be able to live what I preach, and that is that any normal vehicle, as it comes from the shop floor, you can bring. So this vehicle I've left as standard as I could, and that included the tires. But it's been 2 years now, so I'm happy that I've proven that 18 inches are fine. They work. They take a little bit of a hammering, but they do still work. So I decided to switch to 17. So let's quickly talk about why people would do it. One of the big reasons people do it is just for the looks. Put spacers, there's all kinds of things that is a bad idea engineering wise if you put spacers in. But some people like the look, they make it wider. The moment a wheel sticks out on the side of your wheel arch, you get mud on your window, and you get mud on your mirror. So when I changed my tires, I decided to go with exactly the same width so that my wheels stay exactly inside the wheel arch where they're supposed to be. So just always be aware of that. If you have a slightly wider tire and it sticks out on the side, if you have one, you'll know. You hit mud, your mirror is full of mud. So some people do it for looks. Some people would say they do it for traction. So they want a bigger tire, better traction. And yes, there's truth in it, and I'll show you that just now. And then you can also do it for ground clearance. The bigger your diameter, the higher your vehicle is off the ground, and that gives you a little bit more ground clearance. And if your vehicle is scraping and the vehicle in front of you is not, then you are only like 10-15 millimeters lower than them. It's never a big difference. So if you can just gain that 10 millimeters, you will normally do very well with ground clearance. Why would you not want to do it? Well, your wheel size changes, which means your circumference changes, which means that the turning of the axle changes, so your gearbox is impacted by it. You can have rubbing because the tire is too big and it now starts just catching and rubbing on the insides, and you don't really want that. It's annoying, and it just sounds wrong. And if you wanted to go for a fancy tire, your fancy tire might not be available in other parts. So one of the reasons I wanted to switch to a 17 is that when I go up into Africa, then the 17s are more available than the 18 inches. So I just wanted to switch to a 17. I have to drive in front. My vehicle always has to be reliable, and I can't have it run out of a tire because I have 18. So I just decided for that reason, let's go for 17. They're more available, they are cheaper, and because it's a slightly bigger diameter, they give you slightly better life, which means it's a cost-effective thing to do. The benefits of doing this is a correction on your speedo normally. So speedo, if you drive your car down the road and you put your GPS on and you put your speedometer on, then you'll see that your speedometer reads about 5, 6, 7 kilometers an hour, depending on the speed that you're going, above what the GPS says. So you'll see 110 on the speedometer, but your GPS will say 102. So what happened to that 8 kilometers? I have my theory. I don't know exactly what the reason would be, but think about it. Your speed is determined by your axles turning, and that is also counting your kilometers, so your odometer, your distance that you drive. So if I have a smaller wheel, it rotates the shaft quicker, so I think I'm going faster, I think I'm going further than I actually am, because the wheel is a bit smaller. Now what does that do for the motor manufacturers? One, they service more regularly. You can gain a 5% increase in your service on a fleet of vehicles just by changing the tire size to one size smaller. So you're going to service more regularly, and yeah, for your vehicle maybe it's one service every 200,000 kilometers that you're going to do. But think about how many million vehicles there are out there, and they all have an additional service to get to 200,000 Ks. So that's one of the possible reasons. I'm just speculating. The other one is if your tire is smaller, then it rotates more for the same distance. Therefore, your life is a little bit shorter, and you're going to replace tires more often. So if you buy your tires from Toyota or whoever, then they sell 3% more tires just because they have that size that they use. So therefore, a lot of people would introduce a tire that is slightly bigger, that comes closer to the correct odometer reading, and there's a limit on how big you can go, and that's got to do with your gearbox and all the other parts that are designed to work with the OEM size tire. Your tire, you open the door, you look inside the driver's door. On the dorsal there will be a sticker that says what tire you're supposed to be driving on that vehicle. Your pressures are also given, and if you change tire size, your pressures are going to change as well, so take note of that. But with that being said, I decided to change my tires for a 17, and then I decided to go through the inflation and deflation thing just to get my tire pressures again, so that when I go into sand with the new 17s, that I know what I need to do, and just makes life easier. Because when we drive and we have sand, my guests always say to me, what pressure should I have? And I'm like, every vehicle is different. Every tire is different. The load is different. So I can't just give you a number. But I've been giving people numbers of 1.5 in the front, 2 in the back. Because the back is always heavier. You need to pump it a little bit more just to keep the tire in the correct profile. So that normally works for me. A 1.5 and a 2, but it's very general and it's not specific at all, and you can still get stuck or you can still have damage on a tire like that. But what I wanted to do is basically from the 18, which is very small and has a very exposed shoulder, give it a 17 that sits a little bit higher, and the shoulder are slightly less exposed at the same pressure. So I went through the exercise, I got myself the 17s, and then I did the exercise with the distances. I also found the old video that I did with the 16-inch rims on my Troopy, and I just added those numbers in, and we'll chat about those numbers as we go through. So this is how we go. Here's what I did. So the first thing you want to do is to get your vehicle onto a plank. The plank has to have a straight edge. You have to have a piece of paper. Make sure that the wheels are aligned, the front and the back one, so that you don't drive skew onto the plank. And then you use your straight edge to draw the lines, and you can do it for different wheels. In this case, you can see we used the rear on the left of the new tire, the front of the new tire in the center, and the front on the old tire on the right hand side. So what you can see on the left hand side is the rear tire, obviously more heavily laden. I've got probably about 1.5 tons on the back axle, and I've got about 1.6 tons, and on the front I've got about 1.1 tons. So you can see the back tire is much lower than the front tire in the center picture. But if we compare the two front tires, center and right, you can see that the profile on the center picture is better. Now that is about 103 millimeters of profile at 0.5 bar. And on the right hand side, you can see about 75 millimeters at 0.5 bar, which means the profile is much lower on the 18 inches when I'm at 0.5. And this is what I was trying to get away from. I want a safe pressure where the side of the tire, the sidewall, doesn't scrape against the ground anymore. So as you can see here, we start at half a bar pressure, and the 18 inch on the left hand side 353 tread, the 17 inch 366. So there's already a 3.6% difference between the two front tires. Those are the ones I'm focused on. The rear tire all the way to the right is at 418. And as we proceed towards 1 bar, when we get to 1 bar, it is 310 versus 318. It's still about 4%. And then 367, which is still about 15% difference between front and rear. And then as we proceed further to 2 bar, at 2 bar we have 242 on the 18, 257 on the front, which is about a 6% difference. So the 17s do better. And then the rear is at 271. Oh, sorry, 276. So you can see when we get to 2 bar, things start getting a lot more equal between front and back. So the big differences are towards the lower pressures. So as I say, when people ask me what tire pressures they need next to the road, we have a gravel road in front of us, and I say, oh, well, 1.6, 1.5, 1.6 in the front and 2 in the back would be fine. Then you can see the difference between the 18 and the 17 on 2.6. You can see that there's about 18 millimeters track difference in the length between the two at 1.6. And if you look at the rear tire, unfortunately I don't have the 18 in the rear, but if you look at it in the front side, there's another, what is that, 15 millimeters difference if you add 2 bar. And the point of this is really that your traction is better on the 17 for the same pressures. So if I told someone with 18 inch wheels 1.6 and 2, and I told someone with 17 inch wheels 1.6 and 2, the 17 inch person would have better traction because he would have a longer track. And bearing in mind that a bigger tire, you can go about 0.1 bar lower for the same carrying capacity. So the guy with the 17 could probably go for 1.5 and 1.9, something like that. So it will give him even a softer ride. So there's a lot of advantages, and it's not huge, but it's like 6% here, 10% there, a little bit there, and it takes the whole picture and it changes the whole picture. So what does this mean for traveling in sand? And this is something I wanted to get to. And something I've been doing for a while is looking at the weight of the vehicle versus its distribution over the sand. In 4x4 they call it flotation. It means the vehicle is sitting on top of the sand. Your pressure between the vehicle and the sand is not too much, so you can basically ride on top of the sand. So I know for my Troopy, when we were in the Namib Desert, I had 0.5 bar in the front, 0.5 in the back. If you look at the charts, it gives me a 303 and a 420 track length. If you add all of the track lengths, it gets to 1.446, times it by 0.265 tire width, and I have a 0.383 meter squared footprint in total. Weight of the vehicle to 3,200, divided by that gives me about 8,000 kilograms per meter squared. And that for me is a number I've seen before. If you get to about 8 tons per square meter of tire, then you are good for really soft sand. Then the same Troopy, I obviously went to Botswana, and I had some deep sand in Botswana, and there 0.8 bar in the front, 1.5 in the rear, gives me a track of 277,291. You add it together, times 0.265 to get your footprint, and it's 3.2 tons per 0.30 square meters. Gives me about 10,500 10,500 kilos per square meter. So Namib was 8 tons on a square maximum. In difficult Botswana sand, I had about 10 tons per square meter. And then I also did fairly standard driving with the Troopy, 1.3 in the front, 2 in the back, and that gave me about 12 tons per square meter. So you can think of difficult sand being an 8 ton per square meter setup, and easy driving would be 12 tons per square meter if you calculate it like that. So with my 18-inch rims in Botswana, normal sand that I normally would drive, it was 1.2 by 1.8, low profile, so I'm a little bit scared. I over deflate them. I never got stuck in sand. And there's my calculations. 294 front, 284 in the back. You add it up, you get 1.156 times 0.265, which is the width. Gives me a 0.306 squared. The weight of the vehicle, 2750. It's lighter than the cruiser. And that gives me about 9,000 kilograms per meter squared. So what I normally did with my 18 inches was to deflate them a little bit too much because I was scared of getting stuck. And I ended up between difficult sand or Namib style sand and difficult sand. So I was actually in the ball. Well, I was overcompensating for this whole thing. So looking at my new tires, what am I going to do? Now, if you just flip the whole calculation upside down and you say, okay, I want to know for 8,000. So this is Namib stuff. 8,000 divided by 2,700. There's my total tread area, 0.338, divided by the width of the tire, gives me 1274 length of track. Gives me 318 millimeters per wheel. And if I go to the chart on the front, 0.318 is 1 bar or 0.9. And if I look at the rear, 318 is 1.4. So it gives me a 1.4. So that's for difficult sand. So if I go to the Namib, then I would be looking at, say, 1 bar in the front and 1.4 in the back. That will give me difficult sand driving in the current conditions. If I was looking for easy sand driving, or let's say middle of the road, it's 10,000 kilograms, 10 tons per square meter. And then if I do the calculation, I get to 254 millimeters, and I get 254 at about 1.7 in the front, and 254 at about 2.6 in the back, which means technically I only need to deflate the front tires a little bit when I go onto easy sand, and I'll be fine with that mid-range sand. If I have easy sand, the 12,000 or the 12 tons per square meter for the Troopy, that was considered easy. If I do that, I don't even have to deflate the tire because the tires will be fine doing that. But now I have to make things easy for myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just say front is 1.2 bar, which means if the sand gets softer and thicker, I'm still covered. If the tires get a little bit warm, I'm still covered because it can go up by 0.3, 0.4 bar. So I'm going to end up at 1.5, 1.6. And then in the rear, I'm going to do 1.8 bar, which makes the ride fairly comfortable. If it heats up, it will go up to 2.2, which means I'm still under that 2.6. And therefore, for easy, comfortable driving, I will go for 1.2, 1.8. And then for difficult driving, I will do 1 bar and 1.4. And those are the two numbers that I'm going to remember. And based on my vehicle as it is, it will give me the perfect balance for where I am. So to conclude this video, let me go through just my thoughts on this whole exercise, and this is going to be quite helpful. Firstly, it took me forever to make this video because I couldn't come up with any bombshell, this is so cool, that I would change to 17s from 18s, because in all my stuff that I looked at, 18s are not bad. I've never gotten stuck with my 18s in sand, so there's no real reason to move away from 18s. If you have 18-inch rims on your vehicle, just be careful for the low pressure. And you've seen now that 18s can give you quite a good footprint at fairly pressurized levels. So for an 18, I would not drive an 18 under 1.2 bar. I just wouldn't. It's going to damage the wall, especially if you're doing gravel. Sand, not so much, but gravel, yes. So I battled to make this video because I couldn't find this bombshell revelation that a 17 is so much better than 18. But that being said, there are small things all over the place that proves or shows that it is a slightly better tire in several aspects. It's the ground clearance is just that 25 millimeters more. The fact that I can inflate it a little bit more for the same footprint as an 18. That 0.2 bar makes a big difference when I start doing gravel. So I can be much more protective of my tire with increased pressures, but still retaining good traction. And I think that is the key. And I've noticed it on my last Zimbabwe trip. The vehicles with the 17-inch rims, when I say let's drop tires down to 1.5 and 2, I look at their tires and they are still stiff. They still look good. The 18s look flat. And I realized, but there is a difference. It's subtle, but it is there. So the two things that I walk away from in this exercise is, one, I did my pressure comparison front to back. So I have a little spreadsheet that shows me for certain tracks what is the opposing pressure on the rear. So now I don't need a stick to measure the profile height. I can just use my table and say, well, if I deflate the front to 1 bar, then it's 318, and I look for 318 on the rear, and it's about 1.4. And I drop to 1.4. When I start driving, I keep an eye on temperatures. If the temperatures are all in place, then I'm fine. I'm not going to get stuck anywhere in sand with this configuration. The second thing I have is just to know that my footprint is actually better than the Troopy. And the Troopy I trusted when I got into sand. I never had a problem in deep sand with the Troopy. So I'm quite comfortable that the numbers that I have here are good numbers. So if you drive a Hilux, you have 17-inch rims, and you have a 265/70 wheel on it, you can pretty much use these numbers as well. Soft sand, normal sand, and getting stuck is not going to be a big issue. If you're towing, of course, things change. I don't know how it changes because your weight is now carried by the trailer, but you are dragging more weight through the sand, so the kilograms per square meter numbers changes. Obviously, I would say to the 8,000 kilograms per square meter. But yeah, so the exercise was fruitful. I think better ground clearance, better traction at high pressures. I can go lower on pressure and get more traction if I'm in the desert conditions. With the 18s, I wouldn't want to go below 1.2, and now I can. I can go down to 0.5 if I want to on the front. So it is an option for me now. So I'm very happy with that in really deep sand conditions where it's a desert, you just don't know how soft the sand is going to be. So for me, it is a useful exercise. The tires are more available. The tires are generally cheaper. They're going to last a little bit longer. So all in all, the exercise I think was worth it, even though the numbers are really small. And what I get out of this is really small increments. But yeah, I'm happy with it. If you are keen to do the same exercise, you've seen what I did. It's fairly straightforward, and you can draw up your little table and figure out how does this whole thing work. But otherwise, I hope this was sort of insightful, and yeah, I'll give some feedback once I've been through Kukuland next, because then I'll know if my sidewalls are doing better or not. I will do a video after that just to touch up this one. So have a great day until we see each other again on a trip. Cheers.